I've got a new wife and kids now. I was at a loss for words at my husband Corey's statement. Then, the woman next to Corey said with a laugh, "I'm already 7 months pregnant. So, get a divorce and leave before the baby is born." The woman made a shooting gesture. I was definitely angry. Resisting here would only make me miserable. That's when I thought maybe I should just. My son, Tyler, interrupted. "Divorce? No way that's happening." "Huh? Why not?" I was surprised not by the woman in front of me, but his words were a shock to me. He quickly turned to me. Then he whispered a certain fact to me. "Ah, so that's how it is." If that's the case, I can understand why he would say that. But if what he says is true, then there's no need for me to agree to a divorce so readily. Taking my time to respond would make both that woman and Corey suffer more. After all, cheating and even having a child deserves some retaliation, doesn't it? While laughing in my heart, I bit my lip and looked seriously at Corey and his group. "My name is Diana. I work for a company that sells health food products. I am in charge of call center operations. I'm an operator there. I deal with complaints, yet my salary is on the lower side. It's a job where stress accumulates more than savings. However, my husband Corey, who works for a trading company, earns enough. That's how we're managing to get by. If I were alone, I would have quit long ago. I'm now 44 years old, and my son Tyler is in high school. Looking ahead to college, he still requires a lot of money. During such a tough time, Corey ended up having to go on a solo assignment. However, once he completes a year of solo assignment, his promotion is guaranteed. Moreover, during his solo assignment, Corey will live in an apartment rented by the company. Since I live in the house he built a few years ago, our expenses will only slightly increase with Corey's living costs. It's just a year of endurance, and we'll have to focus on saving. If you work hard now, a good future awaits you. I was thinking about it lightly like that. Of course, I miss him. But I'm not at an age to say such things. Besides, before marrying Corey, it was common for us not to see each other for days. We met through a friend's introduction. Our mutual friends got married, and we were introduced at their wedding. There we were introduced to each other and we started dating. But from the beginning of our relationship, he often wasn't home due to business trips. "We can go on a date this week, right?" "Sorry, I've been asked to go on a sudden business trip." "What? A business trip again?" I pouted, and he appeased me. This was repeated many times. He works for a trading company and has clients all over the country. So, during the busy season, they're short on hands. I've heard this story multiple times. That's why I resigned myself to it at the time. "Then, let's go on a date when you come back." "I'm really sorry. I'll make it up to you for sure. And, can I ask you to take care of the house again?" "You're still not good at housework, Corey." While he was away on business trips, it was my job to take care of the household chores he accumulated. It became so routine that I received a spare key shortly after we started dating. But I was thrilled about it. The spare key was a sign of trust and a symbol of being a couple. We ended up getting married while still in that kind of relationship. Perhaps because of that, Corey left all the housework to me. He showed no signs of wanting to help out on his days off. Even after our son Tyler was born, nothing changed. I tried to get him to at least help with childcare. But he refused, saying he was too tired from work. I was disappointed, but he was diligent at his job. He also made sure to contribute financially to the household. When I talked to my friends about it, they said that's just how most husbands are. Was I wrong to want my husband to help with household chores? Nowadays, it's common for husbands to help out at home. But back then, that wasn't the norm. Men worked outside, and women took care of the house. It was still a world where such excuses were acceptable. So, I ended up doing all the housework and childcare by myself, as Corey said. Talking like this might make it seem like my marriage was a failure. But I don't think so. There were good things about being married. Especially, it was great that his business trips significantly decreased. One reason was that his boss was considerate, and another was because my coworker was the boss's wife. It seems the boss's wife, having heard my story, spoke to the boss on my behalf. That really reduced his business trips. However, Corey seemed unhappy about it. It kind of feels like I'm being sidelined from work. They were just being considerate, weren't they? That may be true, but it's not like I'm any help with household chores, right? He frowned. I averted my gaze slightly before answering. Wouldn't it be good if you could gradually learn to do some housework? But, he just couldn't seem to accept it. Reluctantly, I decided to wait and see. But no matter how much time passed, he didn't start helping with the household chores. Instead, as he started spending more weekends at home, he took up golf on his own. Why golf? Didn't your boss tell you to help out at home? Yeah, that's true, but my boss and our clients also play golf. He began to twist logic in a way I couldn't understand, saying it was necessary for work. If you play golf all the time, I'll tell my boss's wife again. What? Going to snitch again? Because you won't help out. Enough! Don't complain. You can live because I'm working. He raised his voice, and I was at a loss. He was so kind before we were married, but now that's nowhere to be seen. However, living on my income alone would be very difficult. But there are things that are true and things that shouldn't be said. I needed to make that clear. With that in mind, I resorted to somewhat forceful measures. The next month, I reduced Corey's allowance. Reducing my allowance? Why? We need to save for Tyler's education, right? And eventually, we want to buy a house. But there's no need to cut my allowance for that. He raised his voice. I frowned and retorted. Then help out a little with the household chores. That way, I can work more and earn a higher salary. That is... Corey hesitated. In the end, he silently accepted it. Then, one day, after some time had passed, he handed me a debit card. Here, I'm giving this to you. A debit card? Is this for saving up to build a house? Yeah. I've been saving money in it. I'm entrusting it to you, so can you give me my allowance back? Corey said sulkily. While glancing sideways at Corey, I checked the savings amount on the banking card. There was already about $100,000 saved. I was astonished. Really? You've saved this much? Of course. I want to take care of you and Tyler. Thank you, Corey. Overwhelmed with joy, I hugged Corey and promised to restore his allowance to its original amount. But all this was Corey's strategy. I didn't realize that until much later. However, this incident significantly changed our relationship. We started cooperating to build a house. But that doesn't mean he started doing housework. He just supported my efforts to save. He agreed to eat the lunches I prepared, and we drastically reduced eating out. He also cut down on his golf outings. Naturally, I made sacrifices too. As a result of our mutual efforts, we managed to save enough money to build a house in just a few years. By the time the new house was completed, Tyler had entered junior high. Tyler worked hard in both his club activities and studies, achieving top grades in school. His teacher said he could attend one of the top high schools in the state and even aim for a national university in the future. I was truly happy. Then, right after Tyler started high school, Corey came home from work with a serious expression and started this conversation.
Diana, I've got some sudden news, and I'm sorry to spring this on you, but I've been assigned to a solo assignment.
What? Solo assignment? Why?
Actually, he explained that his work had been recognized and he was set to be promoted. However, a condition for his promotion was to go on a 1-year solo assignment. The company will provide a place to live, so all that's needed is living expenses. However, we've only built our house a few years ago. We still have a mortgage and it's a difficult time. His boss told him to discuss it with his family. Needless to say, I was torn. We have a significant mortgage and we can't afford to live separately. If we were to travel back and forth on weekends, it would be a major expense. But if we can endure for just 1 year, he'll get a promotion and we'll be financially better off. Corey looked like he wanted to go. So, even though I was hesitant, I encouraged him.
It's only for a year. We'll make it work.
But there's the house loan.
It's okay. I'm working too.
Thank you, Diana. That's how I sent Corey off. But once we were apart, there were more challenges than expected. Often when I called, Corey didn't answer. You didn't answer the phone yesterday. What happened?
Sorry, I was working late.
Are you okay? Any troubles?
I'm fine, no problems. Just don't have time to clean up my room, maybe?
He laughed sheepishly. I sighed in frustration.
Should I come over and help clean up on my day off?
No, that's okay. Corey suddenly started to panic. Something felt off. I immediately thought that.
Is there something you're hiding?
No, not at all. It's just a waste of travel expenses.
Corey laughed nervously. The response made me feel uneasy. Could there be a secret he's keeping? Or is there a reason he doesn't want me to visit? My thoughts raced, but the word that came to mind immediately was affair. If he's on a solo assignment, he's out of my sight, and he might think it's okay to have a little fun. I'd laugh it off if it was just a visit to a night bar. But an affair is a different story. That I cannot forgive. Though perplexed, without any evidence, I let it go for the day. However, the unease in my heart didn't disappear. I spent much time troubled. Then, as nearly a year had passed since Corey started his solo assignment, something happened. When I came home from work, the lights were on in the house unexpectedly. Tyler had club activities and was supposed to be home late. So, who could it be? I opened the front door cautiously. His familiar shoes were there. But there were also women's shoes I didn't recognize. A bad feeling washed over me. I hurried to the living room.
Welcome back, Diana.
Corey was in the living room. Next to him was a young woman I didn't know.
I'm home. Who is this?
As I asked, Tyler's voice came from the entrance.
I'm home. I'm starving.
Tyler rushed into the living room. And then suddenly stopped upon seeing Corey and the woman.
Do we have guests? Sorry, should I go out?
Tyler offered tactfully. But Corey stopped Tyler from leaving.
No, there's something I want Tyler to hear as well. So, please, stay here. Oh, okay. Sure.
Tyler seemed to sense something and looked at me. Trying not to show my disturbance, I nodded at him with a smile. Soon, Corey began to apologize. Then, he dropped the bombshell.
I've got a new wife and kids now.
I was speechless at his statement. Then, the woman next to Corey said with a laugh, I'm already 7 months pregnant. So,
get a divorce and leave before the baby is born.
The woman made a shooting gesture. I was definitely angry. Resisting here would only make me miserable. That's when I thought maybe I should just. Tyler interrupted.
Divorce? No way that's happening.
Huh? Why not?
I was surprised not by the woman in front of me, but Tyler's words were a shock to me. He quickly turned to me. Then he whispered a certain fact to me. Ah, so that's how it is. If that's the case, I can understand why Tyler would say that. But if what Tyler says is true, then there's no need for me to agree to a divorce so readily. Taking my time to respond would make both that woman and Corey suffer more. After all, cheating and even having a child deserves some retaliation, doesn't it? While laughing in my heart, I bit my lip and looked seriously at Corey and his group.
Do you understand what you've just said?
When I asked, Corey nodded quietly. Corey has a family with me and Tyler. And yet, he's saying he has a new wife and child. This situation couldn't be more absurd. So, what are we, exactly? I gave Corey that kind of look. Then, the woman started complaining with a pout. Just leave already, okay? You're in the way.
Could you please not butt in? This is a family matter.
Huh? I am family. Look, I'm having his child.
The woman caressed her belly. I retorted, irritated.
Excuse me, but what's your name?
Me? Savannah. And who are you, exactly? Savannah snorted disdainfully, almost laughing in a creepy way. Though it was clear without asking, I answered.
I'm Diana. Corey's wife.
Wife? You won't be needing that title anymore, will you?
Why not?
Because his is dumping you. Savannah opened her mouth in a big laugh. Next to her, Corey had a pale look on his face. Setting that aside, something became clear from this conversation. Savannah was pushing him to divorce me. Indeed, Corey mentioned having a wife and child, but he hadn't said he wanted a divorce. Well, even if he didn't say he wanted a divorce, a husband who cheats and has a child with another woman is the last thing I'd want. I see no option but divorce. But, as Tyler said, now is not the time for divorce. The best course of action is to divorce after ample preparation. As I pondered, my irritation grew. I couldn't stand it anymore. Reaching my limit of patience, I told Corey.
Sorry, but I need some space to cool down. Please leave.
No, but...
You do realize you're at fault here, right? Or are you trying to make things worse?
As I glared at him sternly, Corey averted his gaze. Then, he quickly gathered his things and somewhat forcibly got Savannah to stand up.
Savannah, just for today, let's...
Huh? Didn't you say you'd divorce? Or are you planning to shirk your responsibility?
No, it's not that, just for today.
He forcefully led her to the entrance. He apologized with a look of remorse and left. Once the two of them were gone, I felt a sense of relief and sat down where I was. Mom, are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine.
Contrary to my words, I felt down. Sensing how I felt, Tyler took out his smartphone.
Should I call Grandpa and tell him Dad betrayed us?
Betrayed is a bit strong. As I admonished him, he frowned in dissatisfaction. Then, he pouted and said,
But he borrowed money from Grandpa, saying it was for Mom. That's right, wasn't it? Can you tell me that story again in detail? So, here's what happened.
Tyler's story goes like this. It was about the time I reduced Corey's allowance. Corey was trying to figure out how to get back in my good graces and have his allowance restored. That's when he thought of the house building plan I had mentioned. But there was no savings for building a house. In trouble, Corey consulted my dad. Believing his words that it was for my sake, my dad lent him the money.
Thank you so much. I'll definitely repay you.
Don't worry about it. It's for Diana. Just make sure you don't overdo it and pay back little by little.
It appears such a conversation took place between the two of them. However, something bothered my dad. It was Corey's actions immediately after leaving my dad's house. Right after leaving, Corey was seen making a phone call to someone. Judging from his behavior, I guessed the person on the other end was a woman. So, just in case, he came up with a plan.
And if anything happens, report to me. Grandpa told me this story.
It's possible that he had already been cheating since then. Such thoughts crossed my mind. Nevertheless, I understood what he wanted to say. But I had plans of my own. To carry out my own form of revenge, I told Tyler this.
Could you wait a bit before reporting? I have my own plan.
I guess that's okay, but...
Don't worry. I'll definitely report back.
He reluctantly nodded at my words. Thanks to that, I bought myself some time for revenge. The first thing I did was refuse to leave the house. It seemed like Savannah was eager to move in quickly. So, I decided to deliberately stay put in the house. As expected, Savannah called, sounding irritated.
How long are you planning to stay there? Leave already.
Why should I? This is my house, isn't it?
The house is in his name, not yours.
She raised her voice. Naturally, I recorded all of this. I figured it would come in handy during the divorce. That's what I thought. But Savannah didn't seem to care about such details. Shouting as if she was trying to intimidate me, her voice louder than necessary.
Come on! Get out already! You're not needed anymore.
I won't leave until we're divorced.
I told you to leave before the baby is born.
She raised her voice even louder. I sighed dramatically.
If that's all you called for, I'm hanging up.
Hey, the conversation isn't over.
She started to say something else, but I cut off the call. I decided to block her number to avoid further hassle. Then, possibly frustrated by my response, Savannah took drastic action. The next day, as I was leaving the house as usual, a strange smell wafted through the air. What's this smell? It's like garbage. Covering my mouth with a handkerchief, I stepped outside the gate. Instantly, my eyes widened in shock. Garbage was scattered all over the front of the house. Passers-by were also frowning at the sight.
What is this?
Even as I muttered, I pictured Savannah's face. So, she's resorting to force. I clenched my fists as I went back inside the house. I grabbed cleaning supplies and immediately started cleaning up.
If that's how it's going to be, I'll just have to make my next move.
Unexpectedly forced into this extra task before work, I was thoroughly infuriated. However, executing my next step would take time. While I was making preparations, garbage continued to be scattered. Even more, graffiti was sprayed on the walls of the house. Cleaning up became my daily routine. Meanwhile, I was becoming increasingly exhausted. This situation could potentially affect my job. That's how far I was pushed. So, I had no choice but to decide to move.
Sorry to bring this up over the phone, but Tyler and I are leaving that house.
Is that okay?
Corey's voice sounded almost cheerful. Needless to say, this irritated me.
Huh? What's there to be happy about? We're being harassed by someone, you know?
Yeah, right.
Anyway, make sure you take responsibility.
Corey's feigned ignorance was clear in his response. Take responsibility, What do you mean?
You have something to say to my dad, don't you? Come to my parents' house this Sunday. Understood?
I said in a slightly lower voice, and Corey hung up without responding. Then, on Sunday, Corey arrived at my parents' house alone. He seemed very tense, his face completely pale. As Corey sat down, my dad started the conversation.
Corey, it's been a while.
Yes, it has been a while.
I heard from Diana about the new wife and child. Is that true?
Corey looked down when he asked. I had only told him the facts. The fact that he looked down meant he was aware he had done something wrong.
Why are you silent? Say something.
As my dad raised his voice, Corey deeply apologized. I am truly sorry for what has happened. It's entirely my fault.
No need for excuses. Did you cheat? Answer me clearly.
Yes. I'm very sorry. Corey continued to offer deep apologies. Even my dad seemed unable to contain his frustration.
Unbelievable. I consented to your marriage because you said you would cherish her.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Enough. No more excuses. For now, let's talk about repaying the money.
Dad placed the loan agreement with Corey's signature on the table. At that moment, he flinched.
What's wrong? Wasn't that the agreement?
But I can't right away.
Then, you'll have to take out a loan. There are plenty of places to borrow money from, right?
Corey was shaken by his words. According to Dad, the amount lent to him was $100,000. Certainly not an amount that can be easily prepared. But it was a situation he had gotten himself into. He would have to find a way to come up with the money. I watched the exchange with a smirk.
If you can't prepare the money, then sell the house. I can buy it if you like.
Dad is a real estate professional who manages apartments. He wouldn't have trouble finding a use for the house. But he wouldn't sell the house. If he did, Savannah wouldn't stay quiet. It's a no-win situation. I watched the outcome unfold with a laugh inside. In the end, he promised to borrow money from his own parents to repay Dad. As he was leaving, looking dejected, I stopped him. Then, I handed him some documents.
This contains evidence of your affair.
Just a heads up, you might want to check it. At my words, Corey got angry. He suddenly raised his voice.
What's this supposed to mean now? I'll be filing for alimony, so it's for that. Just so you don't say later there's no evidence. I wouldn't say that. Not now.
Corey threw the documents away. I picked them up.
Even if you don't say it, Savannah, was it? She's likely to say something. Savannah has nothing to do with this.
She does.
Because I'll be filing against her as well.
Corey was surprised by my words. What is he so surprised about? Filing for damages against a mistress is quite standard. Had he not understood that? I couldn't help but feel astounded. Anyway, I handed the documents back to Corey and reiterated. Discuss with her who will pay the alimony. I patted Corey on the shoulder. At that moment, his shoulders dropped. Later, Savannah complained to me. She even showed up at my workplace. Of course, the security guards escorted her out. But just before being escorted away, she reportedly said,
"Remember this! You greedy woman!"
I wanted to say, that's absolutely you, isn't it? After all, she's the one trying to take someone's husband and everything else. Nonetheless, I have no lingering feelings for him. I might as well be my guest to her. In any case, we are filing for alimony through a lawyer. All proceedings are being carried out legally, so there's no room for complaint. And regardless of how much she complains, Corey, scolded by Dad, likely won't argue. You lose. I was laughing inside. However, the situation took a turn. About a week after Savannah's visit to my company, my smartphone rang just after work ended.
A call? I wonder who it could be.
It was an unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something made me uneasy. So, I answered the call. Tentatively, I spoke to the person on the other end.
Hello? Excuse me? The police?
The caller identified themselves as a police officer. I listened to their story, growing increasingly agitated. According to the officer, Tyler had been involved in some trouble on his way home from school. He wasn't injured, but he was apparently in the middle of a dispute at a diner near his high school. They wanted me to come as well.
Understood. I'll be there immediately.
I rushed to the diner. Upon arrival, I was led to an office. I entered, apologizing to the staff. Inside the office were Tyler, a few high school students, and the police officer.
I'm so sorry for the inconvenience.
As I apologized again, someone suddenly stood up from the sofa.
You! What kind of education are you giving your son? What?
Savannah!
It was Savannah. She approached me in shock.
Your son stole my wallet.
She raised her voice. The police officer intervened, separating us and starting to explain what had happened from the beginning. Tyler, with exams approaching, had invited a few friends to study together. They started looking for a place to study. Initially, they planned to go to the library, but it was closed for the day. So, they ended up at the diner. They got permission from the store to start a study session at a table on the side. They were studying quietly, so the diner didn't see any issue with it. However, about an hour after they entered, a loud voice from a woman echoed through the diner. When the staff rushed over, they found a woman claiming her wallet was missing. That woman appeared to be Savannah. In any case, the staff listened to Savannah. She claimed that while she was in the bathroom, her wallet disappeared. The staff then checked the surveillance camera. But no suspicious individuals were caught on camera. As this conversation was happening, Tyler returned to his seat, having also been to the bathroom. As soon as Savannah saw Tyler, she began making a scene again. She accused him, saying he must hate her and he was the perpetrator.
Tyler, what's going on?
I don't know anything about it, sorry.
You say that, but did you see anything, Savannah?
I asked, clearly annoyed, and she laughed creepily. Then she pointed at Tyler's bag.
I didn't see it. But it's a fact that my wallet was found in that bag.
Surprised, I looked at the police officer. He nodded solemnly. Of course, I couldn't believe Tyler would do such a thing. But a wallet wouldn't just walk into a bag by itself. I turned to the staff, seeking help. The staff explained the situation while denying any clear conclusions. The angle of the surveillance camera only showed the bags placed next to each other. Furthermore, both Tyler and Savannah had been rummaging through their bags just before heading to the bathroom. That means, from the camera's perspective, both were seen searching their bags with their backs to the camera, one after the other. Even if Tyler had reached for Savannah's bag, it would only appear as if he was searching through his own bag. That was the story presented. This situation put Tyler at a disadvantage. I felt helpless. Just when I was about to give up, a few high school girls entered the office. One of them handed her smartphone to the police officer.
Actually, I was recording.
Recording!
I blurted out in surprise, startling the girl.
Mom, don't scare her. She is easily frightened.
She's your acquaintance? Yeah, she's in my class. She started recording as a precaution when that woman came near us.
Tyler took the smartphone from Lena. Then, he showed the recorded video to the police officer.
Wait a minute!
Savannah panicked. The officer gently held her back.
Look, she's putting it in my bag.
I see.
Trying to frame him.
The officer gave Savannah a stern look. Savannah, avoiding eye contact, said,
It seems I was mistaken. Regardless, let's discuss the situation. No, I'm busy and I'm pregnant.
While they talked, I checked the video on Tyler's smartphone. It clearly showed her putting her wallet into Tyler's bag. It seemed to be her own setup. Relief and anger surged through me simultaneously.
Go quietly for the questioning.
Shut up! It's none of your business.
It does involve me. You're the one who graffitied our house and littered it with trash. The police officer's expression changed at my words.
He said the same, but do you have any evidence? I've hired a detective to investigate, and just the other day, we gathered all the necessary evidence.
I showed the officer photos of the documents I had given to Corey. Tell the police officer who is checking it.
Would you like me to provide the investigation documents? I also have audio of her hurling abuse at me.
The officer nodded firmly. Afterward, Savannah was taken to the police station. I submitted the investigation documents and the audio recordings. As a result, she was arrested on charges of vandalism, among others. She denied the accusations, but the evidence was undeniable. Now, to lighten her sentence, she's trying to negotiate a settlement through my lawyer. On the other hand, Corey, who had been associating with Savannah, became despised by the neighborhood. It was inevitable since he had tried to evict me and take her in. Eventually, Corey could no longer stay in the house and return to his parents' home. Well, it's a good opportunity for him to repay the loan from his parents he used for the settlement to Dad. He must be getting a stern lecture from his strict parents by now. The thought made me laugh. As for me, life got a bit more exciting. That's because of the diner incident. Actually, at that time, Tyler shyly introduced Lena as his girlfriend. Since I had just gotten divorced, I thought he might distance himself from marriage or relationships. So, I was genuinely happy to hear that. He had grown up properly.
I need to grow into a better mother, too.
Of course, I can't say I've completely recovered. But if I were alone, I'd still be feeling down. I'm truly grateful Tyler is here. For him, I'll keep pushing forward. Now, every time I see him in the kitchen, I'm reminded of this resolve. One day, when I went outside to hang the laundry, I noticed the sky filled with clouds common in autumn, showing the season's full arrival. Thinking to myself, looks like it's going to be another hot one today, my gaze inadvertently drifted towards the separate building on our property. We have this other building within the same lot where my son Alan, his wife Stephanie, and their son Ridley, a family of 3, live. Stephanie, who resides in that separate building, seems to have a habit of taking toiletries like toilet paper, detergent, and shampoo every time she comes over. Worse, I suspect she's been quietly taking money from my purse as well. Without ever catching her in the act, I had no solid proof and thus couldn't confront her. As our living expenses dwindled, I decided to take up a part-time job. I've even tried discussing Stephanie's actions with Alan, but he wouldn't take me seriously. So, we planned a meeting with Frederick, my husband who's away on a solo assignment and returns home once a month, along with Alan and Ridley. Stephanie would join us later, it seemed.
I mentioned that money was missing from my purse, but...
Are you saying Stephanie did it?
Come on, enough with the jokes.
Then, Frederick quietly placed his mobile phone on the table. showing us a video from the surveillance camera we had installed at home. In the video, within a brightly lit corner of our living room, Stephanie was seen finding my purse, taking out a few bills, and then placing the purse back into the bag. Alan was shocked.
But I've been giving her enough for living expenses. Why would she? Are you still oblivious to what's happening?
Realizing what I meant, Alan stormed out, filled with anger, ran straight to the separate building, and brought Stephanie back with him. Faced with the video evidence, Stephanie's face turned pale. My name is Michelle, a 60-year-old housewife. Frederick, currently on a solo assignment, returns home about once a month. We're both past the midpoint of our lives, hoping for a peaceful existence, but it seems that's not so easy to achieve. When Frederick's solo assignment was confirmed, he confided in me with a hint of disappointment.
Michelle, I've been assigned to a solo project, so from next month, I'll be living on my own. A new branch is opening, and they want me to oversee the staff there.
Frederick has always been like a reliable older brother at work, respected for his caring nature. This extended beyond his professional life into our home. When our son Alan was born, Frederick eagerly took on tasks like feeding and changing diapers. Even without taking paternity leave, he spent his holidays and summers napping with Alan, taking him to the park, and helping him with his studies as he grew older. It's rare to see Frederick looking so downhearted.
Don't be so hard on yourself. You'll be back before you know it, right?
I had assumed he would return in about 2 to 3 months.
The thing is, I don't know how long it will be. Crossing state lines means I won't see you often, Michelle. I might only come home about once a month, and I'm worried about you.
I wondered why he was worried about me. Then I remembered. I had recently undergone surgery for my chronic condition, and he was probably concerned about that.
It's okay. Alan and his family are in the annex. If anything happens, I'll call.
Alan, Stephanie, and their son Ridley live in the same property but in a separate building. Alan got married 6 years ago and lived in an apartment for about 2 or 3 years before having to leave due to the landlord's circumstances. Apparently, they had looked at other places, but Stephanie rejected all of them, ultimately asking if they could live in the family home. Frederick was reluctant to agree at first, resisting the idea.
Alan, you know Michelle has been ill. I don't want to put too much strain on her, so I'm against it.
Though he initially turned them away, a desperate Alan came back when eviction was less than a month away, saying,
Dad, please, we won't be any trouble. Just let us stay in the separate building.
Perhaps changing his mind over time, Frederick agreed to let Alan's family live in the separate building. He later told me he felt it was safer than leaving me alone. 3 years have passed since then, and they show no signs of moving out, still living in the separate building. Trying not to worry Frederick, I assured him brightly,
I'm doing fine. The surgery went well, and I'm taking my medication regularly.
We should also install a surveillance camera.
The new ones are really good, even come with temperature sensors, could be useful for preventing heat stroke.
You worry too much. I laughed, and the night went on with such conversations. Frederick indeed installed a surveillance camera later, linking it to an app on his mobile phone. Though surprised at first, I quickly got used to it since it was placed high up. A week later, Frederick left with a heavy heart, and now I live alone in our too large house. However, I've kept something from Frederick that's been bothering me. It's about Stephanie. Despite being a housewife, she often leaves Ridley at home and goes out. I could understand if it was for occasional lunches with mom friends, but does it happen too often? Also, whenever she comes up to the house with Ridley, she always seems to take something with her, which has been a source of worry.
Michelle, I'm taking some toilet paper with me, okay?
At first, I didn't mind much as it was just small things, but gradually it escalated to detergent, shampoo, body wash, and even dishes at one point. Though she did return the dishes, it was still odd.
Stephanie, are you struggling financially that you can't buy these things?
Not at all.
Then why take things from our house?
It's just being thrifty.
With Ridley around, expenses will only grow, so I thought I'd save where I can. Please, Michelle, consider it helping out and let it slide.
She said this without a hint of shame, waved, and left again. Always dressed stylishly, talking about going to the spa and getting her nails done. Is she really saving money? Alan works hard from early morning till late at night, and I've never heard them having financial troubles. Wanting to confront her about what she intends by doing all this, but not wanting to be the meddling Miel, I've kept silent. In the midst of these days, I started noticing money disappearing from my wallet more frequently. I suspected Stephanie, but without proof. Time just kept passing without catching her in the act. One day, stepping outside to hang the laundry, I saw clouds typical of autumn, signaling the season's full presence. Despite the lingering heat suggesting another hot day ahead, my thoughts inadvertently turned to the separate building. Since then, surprisingly, I've never actually seen Stephanie taking money. Though I've started to doubt it was her, whispers from the neighbors have begun to reach me, sharing not so flattering rumors about Stephanie's flamboyant appearances around town and sightings with younger men. I was skeptical. Sure, she dresses fashionably, but I've only ever seen her in outfits you'd find in fashion magazines, and she doesn't strike me as someone who would have an affair. Even when she's in the annex, sometimes in pajamas, I just couldn't picture Stephanie gallivanting around. However, the fact that someone actually saw her made me think that there might be aspects of Stephanie I wasn't aware of. Despite my observations, money continued to disappear from my wallet. With living expenses becoming tight, I decided to take a part-time job until I could gather evidence. I told Frederick it was for a change of scenery, but he was so worried that I had to promise to only work as much as I could handle. Luckily, I saw a nearby supermarket was hiring part-time cashiers, so I contacted them and went for an interview. I had consulted with Alan about it, but on the day before I was set to start, I told him,
Alan, I'm starting a part-time job next week.
Why? You've just been discharged from the hospital, and you're still recovering, right?
It's just for 3 days a week. I'll be fine. More importantly, it's about Stephanie.
I decided to take a chance and talk to Alan about Stephanie's behavior, thinking he might say something that could lead to a change.
Did something happen with Stephanie?
Recently, she's been taking household items like toilet paper and shampoo. Are you guys struggling with finances?
But Alan was indignant.
That's not true. I give her money every month, and she manages it. She used to work in accounting, so she's good with managing our budget.
Is that so? But she really is taking things. And money too.
Money? You're saying Stephanie is taking that too?
Alan looked incredulous.
Yes, a little bit of money has been disappearing from my purse. She might not think I've noticed, but this can't continue. Can you subtly bring it up with her?
Mom, are you sure you're not just getting confused? That just doesn't seem likely. Alan sighed heavily, not believing me, and wouldn't listen to anything else I had to say. The next day, I informed Stephanie about my part-time job and explained that it would be difficult for me to look after Ridley as much. This happened just as Stephanie came over, wanting to leave Ridley with me. She looked annoyed and complained.
Then who's going to take care of Ridley? Stephanie, I'm going to be clear. Please take care of your own child. Why do you always leave Ridley with me and go somewhere? Where are you going?
When I stood firm, Stephanie clicked her tongue and glared at me.
Fine. I won't ask you anymore.
She didn't answer my question and took Ridley back to the annex. I was left sweating from the tension, but from that day on, Ridley came over by himself.
Granny, let's play.
I sighed and let Ridley in, taking care of him.
Stephanie went out again today.
And let Ridley in, taking care of him. I hoped that starting my part-time job might lead her to reconsider her actions. With that faint hope, I spent the week. Then came the first day of my part-time job, working from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Having been a housewife for a long time, I was nervous about returning to work after such a break. Even though it was just a cashier job, there was a lot to learn and do. I found myself gripping a notepad and pen, being taught by a young girl, an employee there. She was in her 20s, much more put together than me, and efficiently explained things like the loyalty card system and how to operate the self-checkout machines. I felt overwhelmed. Her name tag was accompanied by a golden badge that read Customer Service Master, and her demonstration of handling the cash register was impressive.
I have to remember all this.
I reminded myself as I headed home. Searching for my house keys, I noticed Ridley standing in front of my house, which made me approach him curiously. Without realizing my prior thoughts had vanished, I called out.
Ridley? What are you doing here?
Hearing his name, Ridley looked up. Tears streaming down his face and his nose running as he stood frozen. Surprised, I quickly pulled out a tissue from my bag to wipe away his tears and runny nose.
What happened? Did something sad occur?
Ridley had apparently been waiting here all day for me to come out of the house. When I didn't show up, he asked his mom, Stephanie, who told him I had gone to work and wouldn't be home, leaving him shocked and crying.
Why, Granny, are you gone? Because of my job, we can't play together anymore?
He said, sniffling.
Job? What job, Ridley?
I asked. He said, handing me a piece of paper.
This.
Unfolding the small, folded paper, I saw in Stephanie's handwriting, Ridley's job, transfer money from Granny's purse to Mommy's purse once a day. All written in lowercase for him to understand easily.
What?
I alternated between looking at the note and Ridley, asking in a shaky voice.
Ridley, did Mommy tell you to do this?
Then he replied casually.
Yeah.
He replied casually.
Mommy said it's my job. She gave me this paper and told me to do it properly.
My face felt stiff with shock as I took Ridley inside and gave him some juice. He drank it happily, but I was deeply disturbed. I couldn't believe Stephanie would involve such a young child in stealing money. Was this really happening? I had no concrete proof. When could this have possibly happened? I watch Ridley all the time. There's hardly a moment when a 5-year-old is out of sight. Especially when we're together all day. How did he manage to take money from my purse? Then, something clicked in my mind. That night, I contacted Frederick and explained the situation.
I understand. Not that we're doubting Ridley, but let's go back through the surveillance camera footage to check.
Frederick said, listening to me without judgment and agreeing to my request. 3 days passed, and then I received a call from Frederick.
Michelle? I've found something serious.
What?
I felt a tightening in my chest. As it turned out, Ridley was indeed the culprit, but more shocking was the footage of Stephanie teaching Ridley how to take money from the purse. Though we hadn't informed her about the surveillance camera, the idea of stealing money in broad daylight, without any attempt at concealment, was outrageous.
I was planning to come back this weekend anyway. This is wrong. We need to talk to Alan and Stephanie.
Yes, we do.
My heart grew heavier, but now that this had come to light, we had to address it properly. The days leading up to the weekend were gloomy, but working part-time helped me forget about it temporarily, which was a small consolation. When the weekend came, a typhoon was expected to hit directly, but it veered west, sparing our area and resulting in clear skies. However, despite the sunny weather, there was a storm brewing inside our house. Frederick caught an earlier train than usual to come home for the discussion. Looking a bit tired but also visibly angry, indicating a stormy day ahead. Immediately upon arriving, he went to the annex to summon Alan and Stephanie urgently to our house. However, only Alan and Ridley came. Sitting across the living room table from us, Frederick and I faced Alan and Ridley.
Alan, where's Stephanie? I told you to ask her to come as well.
She said she'd come later.
Alan responded vaguely, under the heavy atmosphere. It was as if the ice in the glass beside him laughed at his uncertain answer, clinking loudly.
I wanted to talk to Stephanie, actually, to Stephanie most of all. But fine. Alan, it seems Stephanie has been taking things from the house quite often.
Alan seemed to recall something.
I heard about that from Mom before. But it's not like it happens that often, right? And Stephanie said she got those things from Mom. But what she took wasn't given out of goodwill. She insisted on taking them, saying we should save for Ridley's future expenses. That's not the same as offering assistance.
What?
Stephanie doing something like that. And about the money being taken from my purse.
You're saying Stephanie did that? Stop joking around.
Then, Frederick placed his mobile phone on the table, quietly showing the evidence.
It's no joke. There's footage of Stephanie instructing Ridley to steal money, and of Ridley taking money from Michelle's purse every day.
Alan was stunned by the footage. In the video, Stephanie was seen rummaging through a bag in a brightly lit corner of the living room, taking a few bills from the purse, and instructing Ridley on how to do it, showing him the money before putting the purse back. The fragmented conversation suggested she was telling Ridley to take this amount from Granny's purse. Ridley nodded vigorously, understood, and was then embraced tightly by his mother. Alan was speechless, just staring at the screen of Frederick's mobile phone.
This is from the surveillance camera I installed because I was worried about Michelle's health. I never imagined it would reveal something like this. There's also footage of Ridley taking money from the purse.
Frederick switched the video to another scene, showing clearly when Ridley had been taking the money. When I got up to take my medication for my chronic condition, Ridley was rummaging through my bag and swiftly took money from my wallet. The medication time was fixed, so even young Ridley could easily catch the timing.
I trusted you.
It's the lowest of the low to involve an innocent child in your crimes. Shame on you.
Frederick, normally not one to anger easily, spoke with a voice filled with fury. Alan shivered, and Ridley was frightened by his tone.
But why? I give enough for living expenses, so why? Why did you do this, Ridley?
Confused, Ridley answered.
Mommy said her job is to spend money on people she likes, and that's why it's not enough.
People she likes?
Yes. Mommy always dresses up and goes out somewhere. But I can't go with her. So, I stay home with Granny.
Alan looked at Ridley with a puzzled expression, as if wondering, what does that mean? Is she cheating?
Are you still not seeing it?
Alan caught on to my words and stormed out of the house with a furious expression, heading straight for the annex. Soon after, he came back dragging Stephanie along.
Ouch, that hurts. Let go. Stephanie protested, while Ridley looked confused and close to tears, not understanding what was happening. Stephanie, what's this about? Explain yourself. Even though Alan provides enough for living expenses, why would you steal money from Mom's purse and even involve Ridley?
Surprised, Stephanie looked at Alan, as if she couldn't believe he knew.
What are you talking about? Do you have any proof I did such a thing?
She said, assuming there was no evidence, but Alan showed her the video on Frederick's mobile phone.
This is the proof. You had Ridley do it, too. Where have you been going during the day, meeting some man?
Stephanie turned pale upon seeing the video. She eventually admitted, not to an affair, but to obsessively following a fandom.
I'm sorry. It was supposed to be just for fun. Being alone with Ridley all day was suffocating, and living so close to Michelle was stressful. I just wanted a change of pace, just once.
However, that just once turned into a frequent escape, and she became deeply involved.
I wanted to have fun too. I needed money for that. I wanted money to support the idol I'm a fan of. I couldn't work because of Ridley, and the allowance from Alan was never enough.
But stealing money from Mom's purse, that's just like being a thief.
I'm sorry. I won't go anymore. I'll stop going to the fandom. I'll return the stolen money. I'll change, please forgive me.
Stephanie begged Alan through tears, but he was too filled with anger to listen.
No. Absolutely not. I want a divorce.
How could you? She clung to him, crying until the end, but Alan remained firm and later presented her with divorce papers. I had been keeping a note of the amount of money lost, which I used to create an invoice for her.
Is it really that much?
She was surprised, but surely she was not unaware. She even tried to negotiate to lessen her burden, but I refused to budge, declaring I wouldn't accept anything less.
Stephanie, you should be thankful I'm not filing a police report. You've committed theft repeatedly, even against family. You'd be arrested immediately.
With those words, she fell silent and left, biting her lower lip. Additionally, Alan demanded compensation from Stephanie during the divorce proceedings. A colleague who had recently gone through a divorce recommended a good lawyer. Thus, Stephanie ended up owing not just a repayment to me, but also compensation to Alan. Surprisingly, even amidst such turmoil, she couldn't quit her fandom activities and was rumored to be tens of thousands in debt. It's unclear what drove her to this point, but financial difficulties seemed inevitable. As for me, without the need for part-time work, I quit the supermarket job and now spend my days relaxing at home. No one lives in the annex anymore. Instead, Alan and Ridley have moved into the main house's second floor. Alan won custody of Ridley. Life didn't change much, with me watching Ridley while Alan worked during the day, but at least I no longer worried about theft. Ridley is nearing the age for preschool next year.
I wonder if Alan has already taken care of the enrollment. I'll have to ask to be sure.
I mused to myself while making pancakes for lunch. Then, Frederick came home. Today marked the end of his work assignment away from home. It had been weeks since I last saw Frederick, but he entered the living room with a bright and happy expression.
I'm home. Welcome back. Lunch is just about to be ready. Gramps, welcome back.
Life for the four of us, Frederick, Alan, Ridley, and me, was beginning. This peaceful existence felt truly blissful. Despite the lingering summer heat, autumn was approaching.
Maybe we should go to the mountains to see the autumn leaves during the next holiday.
And Frederick suggested. Always eager to play with the kids, I couldn't help but smile at his enthusiasm, and I started to make another pancake for him.